Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Dr. Wilma Franco, and I have the honor of being the Executive Director of the Southeast LA Collaborative. The Southeast LA Collaborative is a network of organizations working here in the Southeast region to really advance change and work with our nonprofit sector to create meaningful systemic change across the region. The way that the collaborative defines the Southeast cities includes 8 cities and 2 unincorporated areas. We're so excited you're joining us today as we launch our newest campaign, our SELA region. This campaign really represents an opportunity for us to highlight positive stories of change that are taking place here in the Southeast, while also highlighting the leadership that exists in the Southeast region and those leaders that are actually creating this change across the region, but also meeting community need. For us, this is really, really exciting because this campaign is really an opportunity to share this meaningful work, but also educate our community around some of the resources and opportunities that are available in the community. For us, the region and this campaign also is in alignment with our newest policy agenda, the SELA Agenda. For those of you that don't know, we have this larger Southeast LA SELA Leaders network, and collectively with them, we created the SELA Agenda. This agenda identifies investment opportunities across 8 policy regions. Throughout this campaign, which is really the next 5-6 months, we'll be putting together and releasing not only videos that highlight the importance and the stories of how these initiatives began, but also that align with each of the policy areas. Today, we're actually really excited because we're really gonna focus on some of those things that we know have impacted our community the most: education and civic engagement. And before we introduce our panel who is joining us here today, we want to really start with the topic of education. So as you all know, with the pandemic, we saw the impact that education and our students had because of the challenges that our communities are experiencing. And we really want to highlight this new initiative that has been created here with our partners, but also with the city of Huntington Park. So before we introduce our panelists, let's watch this video.
For many years, students in SELA have been at a disadvantage in education. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, things didn't get any better. Now, more than ever, our students need support via tutoring. But finding quality tutoring services in SELA became a challenge.
Families here in SELA knew that our schools had an education gap, that our students were not given the same priority as other cities in LA County. And so we were worried about education support during the pandemic. Even if we wanted to have academic tutoring, it was not available in this region. We had to venture out to distant locations, and in addition, many families could not afford private tutoring.
A medida que avanzaba la pandemia, nuestros estudiantes no podían darse el lujo de esperar más tiempo. Decidimos tomar el asunto en nuestras propias manos. Iniciamos una iniciativa de tutoría, un programa piloto que ayudaba a los estudiantes con dificultad. Con la ayuda financiera de la ciudad de Huntington Park, el apoyo de los padres de nuestros estudiantes y organizaciones sin fines de lucro, pudimos crear este programa que tanto se necesita.
What can we do to solve academic disparities in SELA? Decades of research shows that tutoring is one of the most effective strategies for academic recovery. Tutoring that happens in small groups with regular frequent sessions can increase learning by up to 10 months. It is also one of the most cost-effective recovery strategies schools and districts can consider. We've gathered the research on what makes tutoring high quality.
What is high quality tutoring? At least 2 to 3 times a week, 60-minute sessions, one-to-one or small groups are more impactful. Tutors must be well-trained and supported. Social emotional attention and relationship building is key.
We must ensure that our local school districts engage organizations to elevate the importance of student-centered models, including equity and funding.
Fue un camino muy difícil y desafiante.
To get this tutoring program off the ground.
But with the persistence and support of our students' parents,
the City of Huntington Park and the nonprofit leaders, we made it happen.
If you want to learn more, please visit our website at www.secfoundation.org. You can also discover more at our SELA Agenda at selaccollab.org.
So our first segment today is really focused on this new initiative, the Enrichment Tutoring Academy, which is an academic program that really looks to provide tutoring services both for English and math, and it's an initiative of the Southeast Community Foundation. So joining us here today is Carlos with Innovate Public Schools, Mayor Martinez, and Eddie Tafoya from Southeast Community Foundation. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Wilma. I'm so excited to be here on behalf of Innovate. My name is Carlos Rodriguez. I am Associate Director of Organizing for LA, and Innovate organizes with parents across different communities in California to create political energy to bring about educational changes. And I'll pass it on to Mayor Martinez.
Yeah, so hi everyone, good morning. Thank you, Dr. Franco, for allowing us to be here. My name is Eddie Martinez. I am the mayor of the city of Huntington Park, longtime resident. Went to school here in the Southeast, and I just want to say, unfortunately, Graciela Ortiz, the council member, will not be able to join us today.
Thank you, Wilma, for having us here, and thank you for having me be part of this panel this morning. My name is Eddie Tafoya. I'm the CEO, Executive Director for the Southeast Community Foundation. We are a community foundation that focuses on education here in the Southeast, serving K through 12 students, and our main focus has been academic enrichment, high dosage tutoring. So thank you for having us here.
Thank you for joining us. As we shared, we wanted to highlight and kind of really share more with our community about your initiatives, but also how this all came about. So I'll start with you, Carlos. What initiated this interest for Innovate around specifically this tutoring initiative?
Thank you so much for the question, Wilma. And really, I'll start with, we've been working in the Southeast. We've been organizing with an incredible community of parent leaders that has been meeting every 2 weeks to listen to one another around educational issues and their dreams for their kids, to learn from each other and from experts in education, and then to take action. And so we've been organizing in the Southeast since 2018. And meeting really every 2 weeks, and starting in 2021, and no one will be surprised by this, after the pandemic and distance learning and the impact that that was having on students across the Southeast and the country, both socio-emotionally and academically, parents really identified tutoring, started really lifting it up as something that other communities had much more access to, but was really missing. There wasn't enough of in the Southeast. And so we started really building relationships. That's what organizing is about. And we started getting to know other nonprofits that are also involved with the SELA Collaborative, and met Eddie through that. And parents really wanted to get creative and discover new ways to engage the cities of Huntington Park and Southgate and others, and to push the needle on tutoring so that those very needed services could increase in the Southeast. So that's how really we came to the issue. It wasn't something that our staff came to. It was parents and their stories and their dreams for what their students needed after the pandemic.
And thank you for that, because I think you highlighted one piece that I think for the collaborative, right, and here across the region, we continue to talk about, right, and that's the importance of those relationships, right? Not only the relationships with our community members and our parents, but also with the leadership and, different leaders here in the Southeast. So I think I'll kind of use that to go with you, Mayor. How did the city of Huntington Park get involved, or what was it about this initiative that, the city decided to join?
Well, I mean, definitely as elected officials, we witnessed what happened in the community with the pandemic, with students having to learn from home. We learned from a lot of residents and that there was a lot of youth that did not have access to the internet, or may not have maybe working laptops, or not have the environment at home that's very quiet and safe for them to learn. So we recognized that was a challenge. And at the time in 2021, being vice mayor, Mayor Ortiz being an educator, academic success for youth and tutoring was a high priority for the mayor. And so that's when Carlos approached me and from Innovate Public Schools and said, you know what, we had a Zoom meeting and provided some data and a proposed project that will help support the learning for our youth. And I said, wow, this aligns with the mayor's priority. So and then I reached out to the mayor. Mayor, there's a possible opportunity to have a partnership to help support the academic success. So I was able to get Carlos and the mayor to come together. And from there, we were able to find some funding and support this project.
Awesome, thank you for that, and for pointing the importance of data, right? Because I think it was a data on how our community and how our students were being impacted, right? That really kind of hits home sometimes, right? It puts it into perspective. And I know, Eddie Tafoya, you're leading the initiative, right? Your organization. So can you tell us a little bit of what have you seen in terms of student participation and learning through this program?
Well, I could tell you that the demand is very high. There is a lot of kids out there that are still struggling, that are far behind, and that may never catch up. But if we can get to them, through our foundation, we can make a real difference. When we started the pilots with the city of Huntington Park, we started in the summer. And, you're now looking at the summer of 2022. The pandemic was started in March of 2020, 2020. And so you have 2 years of learning loss. And, that's a lot, for kids that had to jump on a computer, parents that had to all of a sudden become teachers at home. You had a 5-week program that we launched as a pilot to the city of Huntington Park. And in a 5-week span, we talk about data. We track everything. Everything that we do with a child, we are tracking. We're tracking them from the moment they make contact with us to the moment they finish going through our tutoring sessions. So it's very important. All that data is important because not only are you collecting the data and trying to see what progress you're making, but you're also sharing that with the parent. The parent engagement aspect is very important. And so what we did in Huntington Park in a 5-week span, we were able to bring kids up with 80% turnaround and getting them to actually above grade level. And that's just a 5-week span. And so kids that were coming to us were coming in, there's also the social emotional learning aspect. You have kids that have hit the pandemic wall, facing a laptop for months. And so these kids came in very timid. And if you can imagine a kindergartner that started school in early 2020 and then had to go away for 2 years, that child doesn't really know what school's like. So you have to introduce that child now into a learning environment such as a tutoring space. The tutors that we have are not only credentialed teachers, but they're highly trained. We train them really well. And we also have them learn that social emotional learn aspect because you have to be able to break through to a child and then get them to learn after that. So with the city of Huntington Park, we were able to make tremendous strides, tremendous progress. The data that we tracked working with Innovate Public Schools and putting that and dressing that up, it made a difference. We had kids that came in 2 grade levels behind, and in a 5-week span, we were able to get them to get us close to coming back to that grade level that they needed to be.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, because I think that you're right. I think I once heard somebody say learning happens, and it often happens with emotional connections, right? So when you take all these children outside of the classroom and they really don't have that emotional, social connection with their peers in the school setting, right, it has an impact on them. So I think one of the things that you also mentioned and alluded to was this idea of equity, right? Because I know, and we've heard through the pandemic and the impacts of this, right, that it wasn't necessarily that COVID began these challenges, right, but that it exacerbated a lot of what's already there. So, Carlos, do you mind sharing with us, how does Innovate ensure that there's equity when it comes to academic support and learning?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll speak to both the tutoring, but also just more generally. And I think this is an extremely exciting time. I mean, it's a heartbreaking time when you hear stories from parents, right, about how either far behind their students are or the social emotional impact. But there's also some really exciting leadership and just really exciting vision, both in terms of the SELA Agenda, and then also, we work closest with parents that have their kids in LAUSD, and so in terms of the strategic plan that LAUSD has, And so what we do, we have an organizing model that really focuses and has as an undercurrent a deep belief that community members can see themselves, can go through a process of seeing themselves as leaders, to have to be critical friends, right, with systems, and to have research conversations and to engage around solutions, creative solutions. And what really excites me in terms of education, and I'm sure there's parallel things in other districts, is that we do have leaders right now, like the LAUSD superintendent, that are setting a very sort of high vision of what students and schools can achieve in the next few years. And so what we do is just get parents at the table of asking questions at their schools, at the district level, and even at the state level, because our students deserve the sort of action that is that meets their dreams and their potential. And so that's one way that we just creating that transparency and lines of communication.
And you also just hosted a conversation with the superintendent, with the
Yes.
parents, and it was parent-led.
Yes, completely parent-led, and one of the sort of themes or mottos or whatever is when parents lead, results follow. And it was really exciting that he was, speaking in Spanish and really engaging around tutoring, but and also around our Black Student Achievement work and around parent leadership. Yeah.
And I love that because I think your motto, right, when parents lead, your results follow. I think this is an example of that, right? Because it was really community and parent-led that led to this tutoring initiative. So, Mayor, I had a question for you more specifically on what do you hope other cities will learn or take away from these type of partnerships and collaborations?
Yeah, definitely. First I would like to express that sometimes there's miscommunications between nonprofits and government. Sometimes there's trust issues. Me coming from a social justice background and working for nonprofits, sometimes we're always, we're fighting, raising our fists, trying to create change and not realizing that sometimes government operates a different way. And sometimes government will look at nonprofits, trying to rock the boat and creates a lot of energy. And I think at the end of the day, if you sit down and have conversations, you both have the same vision. You both want the same thing for the community. And I think what we saw here with the Tutoring Initiative, that nonprofits and government can work together to create that change. And I hope other cities could take lessons learned from what happened here in Huntington Park and also in the city of Southgate too, as well, because they partner also to help support this initiative and realize that, you can bridge the gap if you work together. Government can only do so much, can only have a certain bandwidth, but nonprofits could definitely come in and help fill a void, and I hope that's what other cities see.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mayor. Eddie, what support does the initiative need moving forward?
It all comes down to funding. There's a lot of funding that is needed for programs like these. And, we're very fortunate that the City of Huntington Park stepped up, working with Innovate Public Schools as a partner. Huntington Park didn't hesitate. They came to the table. And, there's always a stigma with the government, that they move so slow. This was a priority for them. And they came together with the leadership of former Mayor Graciela Ortiz and now Mayor Eddie Martinez. They both kind of carried that flag and were champions and got their colleagues to rally around this, as well as in Southgate. But it takes money. It takes funding. It takes a lot of money. What we do at the Southeast Community Foundation with our tutoring programs, they're free. We don't charge a single penny to a child, to a parent, anybody that's bringing their children to our programs. There's no charge. We do it all for free.
Can you also share what grade levels?
Sure. We service the entire Southeast Los Angeles region, and it's K through 12. So any child that's in kindergarten all the way to the 12th grade, regardless if you're in a public school, a private school, you're homeschooled, or you've never been schooled, we service all those kids.
Right. I know earlier you also mentioned the need, right? Like, what does that look like in terms of moving forward, right? Like, are you able to service everyone that's reaching out? What else do you need in terms of that?
No, we wish we could do that. You know, there's a lot of money sitting at LAUSD, and you know, I'm not here to point any fingers, but if we could have access to that, become a vendor or some sort of a partner, which we're working through, and getting into our schools locally here in the Southeast region, I would love to be at every school and reach every child and not turn anybody away. During the pandemic, when we went into the distance learning model over a laptop, you know, we got calls from as far as Kern County. Oh, wow. We even had a few out of state. You know, we had this huge PR message where it got out and it just went viral. The need is great. It's not just here locally, but here in the Southeast region, what we need is, yeah, we need a lot of resources. We need a lot of funding, and we do need a lot more of this programming. So being able to get into these schools would be priority one, so we can service many more kids.
Awesome, thank you. So I do have one last question for all of you, and I don't know who wants to start, but what do you hope people walk away with from today's conversation? I don't know who wants to start. I don't know if we go back to you.
I can start.
Yeah.
Really, it's two. So we have these like organizing principles, and you know, I've learned them through like various organizing mentors. And really, the first one is power is in the relationship. So just relationships are incredibly powerful. A one-to-one coffee, 30 minutes, to just find where are your common values, where are your common interests. Like that can go a long way. And then the other one is change happens where need and opportunity intersect. And I think what I love about your leadership, Wilma, and the SELA Collaborative and the SELA Agenda is that, I mean, this is an incredible example. I think that's almost like a foreshadowing of and it just, you know, makes me really excited of what the agenda can be, which is like a map, right, of opportunity. So the need is incredibly great, and I think the agenda provides a roadmap of, okay, how do we like create these like creative partnerships and relationships so that we can address more and more of that need.
Awesome, thank you for sharing that.
I could go next. I would say communication and trust are two important values. Yeah, sit down, have some coffee, communicate, express, you know, your thoughts, your opinions, and your vision. And when you realize that you have a common thread, and that's where trust begins, you know, by having this conversation. And then, you know, obviously, it's important to realize that what we do today is setting the foundation for the future. And you got to take chances. And hopefully those chances, you see the fruits of the work, and that's what we're witnessing today.
Yeah, thank you for that. Eddie.
Wow, well, just, you know, if I could speak directly to parents that are tuning in that don't have tutoring right now, you know, I can let you know that we're not going to go anywhere. Our goal is to expand, to scale out, and bring more of these programs to each of these schools. And so we'll continue to reach out to our local cities. We'll continue to reach out to the local school districts and bring these programs to your doorstep so that you don't have to try to go outside or look at other entities where, you know, these things are not affordable. Our program is high quality, it's high dosage. We've been doing it way before the pandemic hit, and it's a model that we're very proud of, and it's a model that is available, is what I'm trying to say. And so, you know, I encourage families to reach out to us. I encourage parents to reach out, go to our website, secfoundation.org. Learn about what tutoring is all about. Learn about what our program, what our Enrichment Tutoring Academy is all about. And I just want them to know that there is hope out there. There is resources out there. You just got to become active. And if you don't reach out, then we'll never know you need the help. So that's my message of hope.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I love everything that you all said, because communication is key, right? When we talk about relationships, that's at the core of building trust, right? And being able to really create opportunities that's really drive innovation, right? Sometimes we're all like, you know, Mayor, you were sharing when we sit down and have these conversations with each other, we realize a lot of us have a lot more in common and have the same ideas and hopes for our community, But unless we're willing to kind of sit down and have those conversations and have those difficult conversations sometimes, we can't create these opportunities that really, at the core, is about how do we help community, right? And here in SELA, I think we're seeing that with your leadership, but we're also seeing that with so many other leaders that are actually doing this type of work. And I think for us, it's an honor to, one, that you have joined us and that you have worked with us through this process, but also we're excited to be able to share some of these other stories and really kind of highlight the beauty that does exist in the Southeast, and how we're all kind of really paving that way, one little piece at a time, right? And thank you so much. I want to thank you for being here, for joining us. And as we kind of transition to the second segment, which is really more focused on civic engagement, and our agenda really calls for that, opportunity around civic engagement of how do we get our community involved, how do we raise awareness, but also how do we create space that are inclusive, right, of all of our community members. And then I know, Mayor Martinez, you'll be staying with us because you're also, not only the mayor of Huntington Park, but you're also the executive director of Latino Equality Alliance. So thank you so much for that. So as we transition, this next segment is really around this other partnership that has taken place with Latino Equality Alliance and the city of Bell Gardens. So to kind of share a little bit more about this initiative and this, what we call the, SELA LGBTQ plus pop-up resource center, we want to have you watch this video first.
The Latino Equality Alliance, founded in 2009 as a direct response to the passing of Proposition 8, California's ballot initiative that removed marriage rights from same-sex couples. Our founders recognized the need for a coalition and coordinated efforts to increase support for LGBTQ civil rights. Today, LEA's mission is to advocate for the safety, equity, and wellness for the Latinx LGBTQ community.
LEA focuses on building power within the Latinx LGBTQ community and advocates for systemic changes that promote healthier and safer environments for LGBTQ youth and families. We ground our work in public education, organized action, and leadership development.
Growing up in Bell Gardens, I didn't have many opportunities to make queer friends, but having LEA come here and give us an opportunity to make friends and have a safe space is really important to me, and I'm glad that they're here.
Because of the lack of LGBTQ support in SELA, the City of Bell Gardens partnered with LEA and created the first LGBTQ pop-up center in Southeast Los Angeles. This pop-up resource center serves as an extension of LEA's support services and enrichment programming. For our youth, it represents a beacon of hope, a safe haven, a place where they can be safe, and marks the cornerstone for all members of this community. This site provides workshops for skill development, restorative justice, and cultural art activities. It even became a catalyst that helped form the Orgullo Camp and the LGBTQ plus program at Bell Gardens High School.
LEA supplies a variety of resources and spaces for LGBTQ individuals to be in community and conversations with one another through arts, educational workshops, and social justice organizing. Most of our youth in SELA are in critical need of many of the services we provide, such as youth and family empowerment, mental health and substance use awareness, COVID-19 education and resources, arts and culture, education training, pride pantry, resource navigation, parent education, and support groups.
LEA hosts bilingual workshops in English and in Spanish for all members of our families and communities as part of our LGBTQ+ educational empowerment workshops.
We must provide opportunities for civic participation, advocate for resources, and model these efforts for our youth so that they can uphold those resources and promote a more inclusive and safe community.
Establishing the LEA pop-up was a challenging process.
But alongside our courageous LGBTQ+ leaders and SELA partners,
we were able to set it in motion,
allowing us to empower our SELA LGBTQ community with the support, care, and resources they needed to thrive.
If you want to learn more, please visit our website at somoslea.org. You can also discover more about the SELA Agenda at selacallab.org.
We hope you enjoyed that, and thank you so much, Eddie, for staying with us. I know, Councilwoman Lizette Flores was not able to join us. She's actually sick, but I know she was really sad to miss today's conversation, and we just hope that she has a speedy recovery. So thank you so much for your participation and actually working with us to put together not only the video, but also thinking about your involvement, right, and your role in actually creating this partnership. So I'll start with you, Eddie, if you want to share a little bit about your role and a little bit about Leah.
Definitely. Thank you, Dr. Fong, for having me be part of this segment. So Eddie Martinez, I'm the Executive Director of Latino Equality Alliance. A little bit of history of our organization. We were founded in 2009 as a direct response to the passing of Proposition 8, which was the anti-marriage equality ballot initiative in California, which passed. And at that time, there was a lot of protesting in the streets, and a lot of us activists realized that we have to be the ones to educate our community, our gente, about marriage equality, about family acceptance, and about LGBTQ issues. So we formed a coalition, and it was different organizations, different activists, and now it's going to be almost 15 years. Wow. We're now based here in Bow Heights at Mi Centro LGBTQ Community Center, and our work reaches throughout the greater East Side region.
You were a co-founder of the
Yes,
organization.
I was a co-founder.
Got it. Awesome. So what has it meant for you to create a resource center here in the Southeast region?
I think to me, it's so important. Growing up in Huntington Park and going to Bell High School and being a elected official, as I'm also the mayor of Huntington Park, I think it's important that we have safe spaces for our youth, and that we have environment that nurtures the growth, and that we have spaces to educate the families about LGBTQ issues. We realized that youth had a difficult time going to Bow Heights, and so we realized that there was a need to open up a resource center for youth in the Southeast, and at the time we felt like we can't get a permanent place, so let's open up a pop-up resource center, and that's when I reached out to Councilmember Lizette Flores. Actually, she reached out to me and she shared her story, and we realized that this was a great opportunity to have a space in Bow Gardens.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about what has it meant to have this partnership, right, and the importance of those type of partnerships, right, to create these type of centers for the LGBTQ community?
It's important that, government, local government, and nonprofits can work together. I think at the end of the day, we all have the same vision that all families, all youth have a very safe and healthy environment. And that's whether you're an immigrant, whether you're a member of the LGBTQ community, that, if we could work together to create a space for youth, take advantage of those opportunities. And we were grateful that the city of Bow Gardens was able to offer us a space where we could come twice a month to host gatherings for youth, but also host activities, in the city of Bow Gardens, in the greater Southeast region. So we hosted a community cleanup, we hosted a pride picnic with local families, and we also hosted a dodgeball event, which was very successful, and I was able to participate, and I got hit a couple times, but it's all right.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what are the youth saying, right? Because I know part of this is also ensuring that our youth have a safe space, right? And part of it is, representation, right? Somewhere where they can feel safe. So what are you hearing from community?
Well, I can tell you from our youth organizers, those who are out in the fields working with youth, they see the difference between youth in the Southeast and Bow Gardens versus our youth in Bow Heights. So in Bow Heights, they have had they had an initiative called the Building Healthy Communities Initiative, where in that initiative for 10 years, they were able to bring a lot of programming for LGBTQ youth. And whereas communities like Southeast, they didn't have a similar initiative. And you can see the difference, that the youth in Bow Gardens are more reserved, are more quiet. They're afraid that their family might know. Where youth in Ball Heights, they're very open because they know the schools have been very affirming and very welcoming of the LGBTQ issues.
Got it. What are some of the resources that the community is tapping into the most? Like, what do you see in terms of need?
Well, I mean, definitely need for youth to participate in leadership development programming, cultural and arts activities, and definitely the parents want to be educated. And so we provide workshops for the parents on LGBTQ issues and ways for them to be advocates for the youth, whether it's in the schools or in the neighborhoods or whatever space that they're in.
Got it, got it. What support does your initiative need moving forward?
Well, definitely support from all the different cities in the Southeast. Obviously, long-term, short-term, we have a pop-up resource center. But, long-term, or maybe that is short-term, that we would like to have a permanent home in the Southeast. So obviously, identify funding, fundraising, supporters out there to keep supporting the organization. And hopefully, we'll be able to have a more permanent home in the Southeast for our youth and families.
Got it. What else do you think is important to kind of highlight about the initiative and what's been able to mean for the community?
It's civic involvement and civic engagement. And I can tell you, getting a little bit of a history, it was about 10 years ago that Latino Equality Alliance, along with several organizations, we hosted a committee forum in the city of Bell. From that forum, we had like about 200 residents that showed up, a lot of youth and families, and we did a survey. In the survey, there was like 3 areas that they wanted support. There was a need for more community resources, 2, to have a safe space, and 3 is a need for civic involvement. They wanted to get involved more. Now, it has taken us 10 years to get to here today, but hopefully we could speed things up and create more spaces to create more leaders, youth leaders on a committee, and parent leaders, so they could be advocate to create some of the additional systemic changes that's needed here in the Southeast.
When you talk about civic engagement, or civic involvement, how are you all defining that? Because I know part of the conversations that we all have, right, is this idea, right? We all mean different things when we talk about this specific. Some folks might say civic engagement is getting out the vote, right? But we also know that our community is 30% immigrants. So what does that look like in terms of like civic involvement or civic participation?
Well, first of all, I think it's so important that we got to realize that we're a very diverse community. We're not just immigrants from Mexico. We're from Central America, South America. Language sometimes is spoken differently. We come from different backgrounds. A lot of us are from communities of faith. And what is so important that we got to learn to work together, to live with each other, to coexist, and find the common thread, and then see how we could be involved. So a lot of space for leadership development, and a lot of space to have advocacy, not only in the schools, but also with local government.
Got it. How has the relationship been in terms of like your partnership with Councilwoman Flores and the city in terms of, the support that you all have been able to create? They've
been very supportive. Councilmember Flores was very passionate about having more LGBTQ programming in the city of Bell Gardens and the greater Southeast area. Unfortunately, she is no longer a council member, but I know when she was a council member, she did receive some negativity from folks from her initiative to have, I guess they had the pride flags or banners up on the streets, and so she received some pushback from residents. Unfortunately, it is what it is, but she was able to have a strength and leadership to push forward that. And I think what she was able to do is kind of like open the doors for more dialogues, for more education. And I'm very grateful for Flores having that leadership and to be bold, and for the city of Bell Gardens to be welcoming and to allow us to have space there.
Awesome, thank you. What do you hope people walk away, from the conversation, but also just, understanding about inclusivity, right, and representation for all of our community members?
I think it's important that, we're constantly evolving as a species, as a human race, and that it's important that you wake up the day with kindness and love. And how do you use that value to make a better world? And the only way you can do that is by having conversations with each other. You know, this initiative is very personal to me. As I mentioned, I grew up here in the Southeast, and on a personal, coming from a personal perspective, that, you know, as much as I've been out in the community and very vocal about LGBTQ issues, my family knows I'm out, you know, for so many years, but I never really had a conversation with my dad about me being LGBTQ. I know he knows because he attended some events, but I just never had that conversation because in the Latino community, it's really hard to have conversation with our parents, especially if our parents are very conservative. And my dad was very conservative. And I think a lot of young folks have difficulties having a conversation with their fathers. I recently wanted to have a conversation with my dad about it, but he passed away. I never had that chance. So, you know, I hope then by having more resources in the Southeast that maybe we could help our younger folks be able to have those conversations, because we're able to educate parents and be visible, and hopefully we can make that conversations a lot easier for them.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, and sorry for your loss. I think part of that, right, I think one of the things that continues to resonate for us, right, is the importance of relationship, right, but also that need for us to really kind of see our humanity in the work that we do, right, because I think all of us at the core, right, of everything, we're human beings, and I think how do we work together, right? And I know there's been a lot of partnerships that have been created. I know for some of the artists as well in the space, right, where they're trying to support, right? So how do you look at partnerships and collaborations here in the Southeast through your work?
I'm a big believer of strength in numbers, that if we work together, that we could create a lot of positive changes. I excel when I work in a team. I excel when I work with a group of people. And I think that concept works true in the community with local government, with CBOs, or with schools, is that when you work together, you could do a lot of amazing changes in the community, and be open to that. And the only way to do that is by having open conversations with each other, so you could build trust. And that's the key thing, communication and trust.
Awesome, thank you. So if anybody wants to get in contact with you, how can they reach out to Lea and learn about the Pop-Up Resource Center, but also just, you know, if youth are watching and they want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Well, first of all, I want to tell all youth out there that you are beautiful, you are loved, and there's a lot of kind people that will stand up for you, including myself. To follow Lea, you can follow us on Instagram. We are Somos Lea. We're also TikTok, Somos Lea. And on Facebook, we are Latino Quality Alliance and Mi Centro. And our website is somoslea.org.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much, Eddie. I know we kind of pushed you into the first segment of today, but thank you so much, because I think it speaks to your leadership, but also your involvement, not only in HP and in Bell Gardens, but really across the entire region, right? I know you have been an amazing partner, just as some, you know, of course, our other panelists as well, not only on like the census work that we have done regionally, but also COVID, right? And I think that's, you know, part of these conversations, right? It's like, how do we learn about each other's work, but also how do we create opportunities for collaboration and supporting each other's missions, each other's works, and each other's, you know, community? Because at the end of the day, you know, our work here in the Southeast is about the entire Southeast LA community, not just one city or one org, but really everyone that lives here. So thank you so much for for joining us and for sharing and for everything that you've done to really kind of, you know, advance community here.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I think, as you heard, right, I think for us, this is an amazing opportunity. I think we have been looking forward to really sharing more about the work that's taking place in the Southeast, right? I know oftentimes, and really what prompted this campaign for us has been that we have been aware of a lot of the work that organizations like, you know, Eddie's and Eddie Tafoya and Carlos's organizations are doing in SELA, not only to uplift the voice of the community, but really meet the needs of the community, but it hasn't been shared, right? And then so we wanted to really create this opportunity where we can not only create videos and share with you all what they're doing and why they're doing this work, but also get to meet them and get to talk with them. And part of that, what you heard today, right, is it takes these moments for us to really kind of sit with each other, share our stories, share why this is important to us, and how we all have so much opportunities to really create so much more of an impact in our communities. So I think I do want to take a moment to thank them all for joining us, but I also want to thank our sponsor. We know that this opportunity in this campaign would not be possible if it wasn't for Ali, who is the president of Optimum Seismic. He has not only been supporting the collaborative through this initiative, but also our initial initiative that really tried to amplify when we released the SELA Agenda because of its importance to the community. So we do have a video that talks about what Optimum Seismic is. So let's watch this.
Optimum Seismic Incorporated, a leading commercial construction company, provides high-quality structural engineering, steel fabrication, and construction services for multifamily and commercial buildings. Our tradition of service is built on value engineering, a systematic method of achieving the best combination of functionality, safety, and cost-effectiveness. If you want the finest engineering and construction solutions for your earthquake retrofit, renovation, or change of use project, choose Optimum Seismic.
So again, we want to thank Ali, his team, Andrea and Tom, who have been such a great, ally and partner and supporter for truly really listening to a lot of what, we have shared with them. But also one of the things that as we put together the SELA Agenda with all these leaders here in the Southeast, that we continue to hear, and it's a, just very large theme across this agenda, is the need for us to recognize not only the Southeast LA leaders and the leadership that exists in SELA, but to also invest in it. So thank you, Ali. Thank you, Optimum Seismic, for believing in us, for really creating this opportunity, making all of this campaign possible for us. So we hope you stay tuned. We hope you enjoyed. We hope you learned something today, not only about SELA, but also the work that's taking place. Part of next step for us is we do have a live conversation like this for the next 5 months. So we'll have 4 more. This is number 1, where we'll share some of the other initiatives with you, and you'll get to learn a little bit about some of our other leaders here in the Southeast. And our hopes is that you can really begin to learn about where you can connect if you're in need, who you can reach out to, and how we can do that. If you want to learn more about their organizations, I know our team is dropping links in the chat for you all to learn about it. You heard SOMOSLEA.org, Innovate Public Schools, and Southeast Community Foundation. You can reach out to them as well. If you want to learn about the SELA Agenda, you can actually go to our website, SELAcollab.org. That's really will give you a lot of information on the agenda, how we're doing the work, and how you can contact us. And then we also want to take a moment to share all the videos that you saw today are actually going to be on our YouTube. So if you want to follow us, you can see them there. If you want to go back, you want to share it, please do, and subscribe so that you can continue to get notices about our future work. And then one last thing, I do want to take a moment to thank our SELA team. I don't do this work alone. It's not only in partnership with our 12 members who are part of our collaborative and the 200 and something leaders that we work with, but also our team, Alberto Campos and Sandra Nunez, who are part of our team and really make a lot of this possible. And a special thank you to Night Flare and their team, who not only are leaders here in the community, but part of that amazing team that are actually making this production possible. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you stay tuned for next month and follow us and let us know what you think. Thank you so much.